Hello everyone and welcome to another speed building video on my channel. As you probably already noticed by clicking on this video, and the thumbnail already gave it away as the title did too, this is a recreation of Versailles, the Versailles of 1634. Why did I pick this Versailles and not the big Versailles as it is today? Because honestly, it's much smaller, much easier to build in a way. Well, easier is maybe the wrong word, but it's definitely, because it's so much smaller, it fits sim slot much better. It's already quite big anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's just impossible to try and rebuild the castle as it looks, what it looks like today, because it's huge. So yeah, this Versailles is from 1634. Versailles actually started, or the Palace of Versailles I should actually say, started off as a small hunting lodge purchased by King Louis XIII of France. So not the 14th, for the 14th is the Sun King, but his father actually, you know, bought the lot, and he started refurbishing it around 1634. So mainly I used the features of the castle, what it looked like in 1634, although a moat did surround it. I did not build the moat, and I did add some golden ornamentations on the roof, although in 1634 it was still much simpler and it actually didn't have these golden decorations, but I went ahead anyway and still called it 1634, but it's actually a mashup between the Versailles, the early Versailles of King Louis XIV and the late Versailles of King Louis XIII. So yeah, enough rambling, I guess, about the history of Versailles. I've always actually wanted to try and recreate this this very famous palace, because as far as you can be a fan of certain buildings, I am definitely a fan of Versailles. I've always loved it, visited it twice now, and I definitely plan on going back one day. Yeah, I think it's very beautiful, it's huge. My addiction actually started when I was quite young still. I probably was around 13 or 14 years old, and my mom had a book and it was called like the 70 or 80 Wonders of the World, and it enlisted Versailles as well, and it had a picture of the Hall of Mirrors, and yeah, that's basically how I got addicted, and I just really wanted to visit this place, which I did twice by now. So I've been very fortunate to visit this beautiful palace. Yeah. Anyway, so here I'm, because I've been rambling about Versailles now since the beginning of this video, and I haven't been talking about this build, but it has been quite a challenge to make it look like the castle. And in the beginning it was difficult to just, you know, go with the right color of the bricks and trying to recreate these busts that are on the brick walls, and just trying to find the right ornamentation to give it that typical Versailles look. So I did that with some columns and yeah, some, I don't know, stuff that I found, and I made it smaller by using the keys on my keyboard. So yeah, here I'm adding some more details. I also hope you enjoyed the music. I decided to go with some classical music because it seemed like it fits this build very well. Yeah, here I'm still figuring out what it should look like. This video is heavily cut. All of a sudden we start finishing up the exterior of these walls, just because it's already taking 20 minutes. And I just didn't want to bore you people too much. But there is one wall I still have to finish up, and I decided to give you guys an in-depth look of how I managed to create this wall. So you can always press pause and see what I do or see what I use if you want to. You know, I'm just, I wasn't feeling the windows. The windows weren't, I don't know, it didn't feel right. So I was playing around with some different windows and see what worked better. And I just thought that these ones actually worked quite nicely. Maybe not perfect, but yeah. They look okay. Here it still doesn't look very much like Versailles, but it will look, it will resemble the palace a bit more once I finish up with the details. So this bridge or gate or whatever I should call it, I don't really know what I should call it, is actually gone now. But back in the day in 1634 it was definitely still there, and yeah, it has changed a bit. It actually had this little iron gate and I tried to recreate that, but that obviously didn't work out very well, so I deleted it again. Here I was just finishing up like the basic layout and one side of the building so I could see what it looks like, and if it resembles Versailles enough to my taste. A lot of things have changed by now. If you'd visit it right now, you can see a lot of differences, like the roofs look different now. Those window thingies, I don't know what to call them, those windows in the roofs from the Vampire game pack do have a lot more gold ornamentation nowadays. So yeah, but I really tried. Here I'm adding some golden ornaments to the roof, although back in 1634 it didn't have it yet. But you know, it's Versailles, so you kind of need. It was a mix for me between the accurate Versailles of 1634 and what people think that Versailles looks like. So it has the layout. It looks mostly like the castle or palace in 1634, but I did add some golden ornamentation because Versailles is gold. Versailles is huge, extravagant, baroque, you know, all these things. So if it's too simple, then people would not think it looks like Versailles at all. So the brick that I used was actually too dark, so I did change it in the end. And also I thought that the trim on the walls, it's not a trim, it's a frieze, was way too big, so I changed the frieze as well, because it's actually quite a simple frieze, or at least in 1634. Don't really remember if it's a more complicated one nowadays. It's very possible, at least. Here I'm playing around with the friezes, and I think in just a short moment we will jump ahead. You will notice it instantly because it looks completely different and the chateau looks different. Then we're just finishing up the last wall on the side of the palace, and the coloring is also very different because it was built in the evening light, if I'm not mistaken. And even the bricks have changed by that time, because I thought that these bricks were a bit too dark actually. The book that I used as a reference for building this castle had Versailles drawn with very dark colors, but the brick of the real chateau is actually much lighter than how it is perceived in the book, so I changed it to the real Versailles instead of the book that I used. So here I am, just finishing up the sides of the castle, this little wall. You can see me hanging up these ornamentations to the wall, then adding the columns. Just adding some more details. That thing is from Get to Work, apparently. It is very modern, but I had to use something, and it actually worked quite well. So I will be moving on to the, well, furnishing is the wrong word, to landscaping. So here I'm just adding some, well, a courtyard, whatever you want to call it. And I did notice a mistake in the far left corner. The tile is a bit wrong. I hope I change it before I upload this video, or before I upload this to the gallery. At the moment I am forgetting about it, so it might be something that you will have to change yourself. Sorry for that. So anyway, about time that I started landscaping a little bit and trying to have a fairly simple but nice looking garden, I guess. Oh no, I'm still finishing up the details on the roof, and yeah. That's again something that I still needed to finish, I guess. The last little details. Oh yeah, here I'm they have these some sort of vases or urns on the sides of the castle. So that's what I tried to do, I guess. Just finishing up the last details on the walls. It gives it a more realistic feeling, actually. And I have to say that it looks quite like the original. Here I'm gonna add some chimneys. I'm still going to change the brick color to a lighter color, like the real Versailles. What it looks like nowadays. I like this dark one, to be honest. It looks nice as well. But I'm already used to the lighter brick, and it's more realistic, so that's why I went with that instead. I was afraid that people might say that the bricks are too dark. You should use a different kind of brick. And that would be fair enough. I mean, they wouldn't be wrong at all. I'm actually really happy with the result of the exterior, to be honest. In my opinion, it looks quite nice, and it also looks quite realistic. We are lucky that Versailles is quite well documented, and that we could still see what it looked like back in the day when it was still a small, humble chateau. So I will be moving on to the gardening, to landscaping very soon. First I really wanted to add a fountain. It never really had this fountain. It did have a moat surrounding it. But I wanted to keep this lot on this 50 by 50. So that's why I decided to use this smaller lot and give it like a small fountain surrounding the castle. In a way, I guess it could be a moat as well. just a very small one. And I just deleted the other one, so I could just copy this one, which is much faster that way. As you can already see, I've already started furnishing a little bit, so you get a little sneak peek in this video of things to come. Like a teeny tiny hall of mirrors, because someone said you should build the hall of mirrors, and at first I was like, you know, this Versailles doesn't have the hall of mirrors yet, because it's way too long ago. In 1634 it was way too small, so that was a much later edition. And I just thought, you know what if I just built 2 tiny hall of mirrors, like some sort of hallway that resembles it a little bit, that has the same feeling. It's impossible to recreate it anyway, because it's huge and it has a lot of decoration and columns and marble. And I mean, the first thing that's already impossible is that you don't have any marble columns or marble wallpaper. There's not a lot of marble in The Sims 4, so yeah, I just try to capture the feeling of the Hall of Mirrors instead of having a faithful reproduction, which is just impossible in The Sims 4 if you're trying to build without CC. So this build does not have any custom content. And to my surprise, if you're creative enough, you can actually come up with a lot of solutions by overlapping certain pieces to recreate it as faithfully as possible. If you want to download this build, it's obviously available in the gallery, in the Sims 4 gallery, and it does not have any custom content. It does use a lot of Sims 4 packs, so if you don't have all of them, you might miss certain parts, certain furnitures, and but it's up for download anyways. My username in the Sims 4 gallery is the same as my YouTube channel, which is Wizard of Oz with a double Z 1988, or you could just type in Versailles 1634 or hashtag Wizard of Oz 1988. So that fountain on the front of the house of Versailles, I got rid of that one. I uploaded some pictures to a Sims 4 group on Facebook, and people said, "Oh, I think that the fountain at the courtyard of the front of the house is a bit distracting because it's so big. You should probably get rid of it." And I kind of agreed in the end. It was a good call. It was a bit distracting. So I'm just finishing up the garden or landscaping and trying to come up with something that looks luxurious and yet small. I'm not always a huge fan of landscaping, if I'm completely honest. There are definitely much better garden builders than I am. But hey, it works in the end, and it looks, I think it looks nice. I'm really happy with the result anyway. Versailles nowadays is definitely not as grassy as it is in The Sims 4. It has a very sandy especially the front of the garden. technically where this garden is now a whole new building, which is a garden facade, which is called the envelope actually, because it surrounds the main building like an envelope does to a letter, and it looks completely different, has a completely different style. So the front of Versailles still looks like the castle of 1634. So if you enter Versailles and you see it from afar, you will recognize certain things that I'm trying to recreate here. But if you'd see it from the garden facade, it looks completely different, because it's a completely different style. It's still Baroque, obviously, but even tastes varied during that long period in time. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave this part here for now, and the second part it will be a furnishing video, which probably will take a very long time as well. You can watch them back to back if you want to, and I want to thank you for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up and write some comments down below, and enjoy the screenshots. Have an amazing day. Goodbye.